Oh, that's good. And you're on the right side because this ear is blowing at the moment, so it's like you can't hear anything on that side of me. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today, Zach. Didn't find a place too hard. In this beautiful Brisbane weather.
It's been crazy. It's been really crazy. I don't have a lot of like water, like just like rain clothes and all that kind of stuff. So
my staple for rain clothes is wool. Like, the moment that it touches wool, it just like sits there and then falls off. So you're okay. So you were one of our last people to come in as a speaker at a workshop presenter for the Writers Festival this year. I was really excited that you were actually able to come in because I think you're our only graphic novelist.
really,
Yes. Oh. And so for that, Zach's going to be there on the Friday. Declan, there's another Zach. I'm sorry, he did like horror stuff, and I was looking at this guy. So Declan Miller.
Yes.
Yes. Declan is going to be there on the Friday, so all of the students coming on the Friday will be able to see how to put together their own graphic novel, which I know is really popular.
absolutely. It's really popular at the moment, and a lot of the festivals and a lot of shows that I go to, a lot of kids are really interested in how to do it. So, literally, what we're going to be doing in the course and all that type of stuff is showing you the first step in what every graphic novelist like myself does to get ready and get going. So you're going to be creating your own character and pretty much figuring out your story.
It's incredible. When I was in primary school, I used to love doing comics, and when I left high school, they were like, "Oh, you can't make money out of being an animator, so don't bother trying. Just go and do something stable, like be a teacher or go into medicine and that sort of stuff." And I was like, "Well, okay." But I always say to people, if I wasn't an author, I would want to be in some kind of art. I'd want to be animating, or I'd want to be doing something as amazing as this. And you're living the dream.
Absolutely. I really am quite privileged to be able to do all this type of stuff. It's quite an amazing opportunity since I started it in like year 8 and I only got it published when I was in year 12.
That's amazing. So which one was your first one?
So this one is, so this is my first book.
Mixed Feelings.
Mixed Feelings, so it's volume 1. So we're actually creating volume 2 as we speak. So they're going to be published by the end of the year. And so I was, that's the one I created when I was in year 8. And I worked on it ever since year 12 and it finally got published.
Oh, amazing.
And the 3 other girls that used to help create my backgrounds for this story were seen and scouted by my publisher, ILF and Gestal Publishing, and pretty much were able to create these 2 other stories.
Incredible. And that's another thing, people don't realise that this is always a group project. It's really hard to produce this, much like games. It's really hard to produce this just by yourself. So you did the foreground characters for a lot of this.
So I did all the mainly for a lot of writing and colouring, everything like this. I created this solely myself with the support of everyone else. So this is Lauren Boyle and Alyssa Mason's story. So Lauren did the writing and Alyssa did the illustrating, and I was a colorist for it, so I helped do the colors and help pretty much push everyone in line, do everything like that. And it's a really amazing story talking about climate change and the effect that it has on the world in cool ways.
And honestly, the artwork is beautiful. I was just admiring the colouring on the dogs.
No, Alyssa's very talented with digital media, and she actually started with using copper pens, so different types of coloured pens, and colour a lot of her characters like that.
Awesome.
And she's really amazing at that. And the next story is Extra Dimension. It's written and illustrated by Serafina Newberry, but also coloured by Justin Randall, a really prolific novelist in the scene. And this story really talks about agriculture and families and how families interact with each other, and a lot about time travel and dimensional stuff. And it's really cool. It's an amazing scene. If you like robots, if you like zombies, if you like cyborgs and all that type of stuff, this is the book for you. All out there, hell yeah.
Excellent. You know what, there's not enough stuff, I feel like, Which desert specifically? Is it American desert? Is it Australian desert?
Australian, so what's it called? The Red Centre, Alice Springs. So
Yeah.
all 3 books are based in Alice Springs. So
Oh, magic.
that's one of the things that we like to keep it as, you know, something.
Yeah, you've got some grassroots stuff.
Yeah, keep it as a home, so you know, it shows where the people come from, shows where there is a lot of green in my book. I found that there is like a lot of green grasses and all that type of stuff. That's because in Alice Springs we have a lot of bore waters where we water a lot of grass and all that type of stuff. So what's it called? Yeah, so it was this launching point for a lot of our books, and we want to kind of give that as a launch point and branch off to different places and explore and show how mixed and diverse Alice Springs is.
That's incredible. Honestly, I think a lot of people don't realise how much depth and richness of culture Australian places have. We're getting given this Australiana vibe constantly. But none of these look like Australiana, and yet they're based in Alice Springs. So definitely worth a read, guys. Check them out, because it's also like, I feel like it's an old person voice where they constantly want to bring in that old-fashioned, dusty Australia rather than what's happening in this day and age and what we're going through as younger people. So, and what we grew up with. It's very different from, pre-internet days.
Well, like, the really important thing that we wanted to do is that Serafina and Alyssa and Lauren were finishing year 11. And moving into year 12. So we just finished year 12 last year. And I took a gap year last year to work on Stick Mob, the imprint that we work together as. So we're a group of graphic novelists. So that's what Stick Mob is. And we're all working on book 2s and all that type of stuff. And it's young people's voices in this medium. And we want to be, like, we're all Indigenous, so we're all from Central Australia, and, we're all reaching, like, our roots reach across Australia and all that type of stuff. And a lot of us want to reach into the Indigenous stories and culture and show people that we're not just, these stereotypes that we are, and there's all that type of stuff. There's a rich culture, and there's a reason why we all lived out in the desert for a really long time and still are living out in the desert. And it's not just like, oh, it's so difficult to live out there. It's quite, if you know what you're doing, you can do it.
Yeah.
And we want to pretty much translate that through our stories and let people know more about our culture.
One thing that you just made me think of with Indigenous culture is when you see the Indigenous countries map of Australia and how all these little nations are scattered through the entire country. And the biggest one, I think, is right in the middle, around Alice Springs.
Yeah.
Like, you need a big territory to be able to support your people in such an arid landscape. But the fact that they did it and those borders were so stable, I love that stuff. I love history, and Aboriginal history never got taught to the fullest extent that it could have.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing that I have loved delving into. The more you look into like Logan's history and Bean Lee's history, and then you go out west, and it's so rich. And to know directly from the people what their history is feels like magic. It feels like you're really in touch with the place that you're part of.
Absolutely, and it's really weird moving to a city because I'm so used to speaking like my own language to a lot of family and friends, and then whether they're not Indigenous or Indigenous and all that type of stuff, and them understanding what I'm saying because of that type of just being around it for so long. Because I'm Arrernte and Anmatyerre, so Arrernte is the big one in the middle that you're talking about, and that has different dialects. So Eastern Arrernte, Northern Arrernte, all that type of stuff. Though with the end of the pronunciation is changed, all that type of stuff.
That's all good. I can edit that out. Thank you. That's mine.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
No, and it's such an amazing experience to just kind of come here and teach people more about it, because I do sadly I do meet a lot of Indigenous people and they don't know their skin name, they don't know they don't have a lot of tradition with them, all that type of stuff, and hopefully me telling them gets them to be able to search it out and talk to their family, reach to their family and all that type of stuff, because my family is very much a King Brown snake and all that type of stuff, and I'm not much of a tattoo person, but I wanted that culture to stay around with me and all that type of stuff. Also the flowers are Stuart Desert roses.
Oh, gorgeous.
So they pretty much stay giant rose bushes out in the desert. You
Yeah.
didn't think them be much colours, there'd just be orange and all that type of stuff, and there's green, and just heaps all this bunch of colours there, nice and bright and purple and all that
Yeah.
type of stuff. It's amazing.
There's so much more life in the desert than what people think there is. And I was one of those kids. I don't know if it's like an autistic thing or not. I would lay on the ground, and just stare at the tiny little bits going on within the grass. And people don't realize just how much there is going on in that small bit. All the ants, all the bugs, all of the different plants that are in there. And when I do something on the beach, you could imagine it being the desert. And I can just imagine being a child and laying on desert sands and looking at the different grains and looking at all the different seeds that you would find in there, the different tracks and the different pieces of miniature wildlife that would just go through that cosmos or something.
Absolutely. When I was younger, I used to always get taken to riverbeds, what's it called, pretty much especially in the dry. And you would just explore it. And you'd look at sand, it's in all the places. It's great. You got to itch there for sand when you're on.
Yeah. The best exfoliation you'll ever get.
No, but there's heaps of tracks and going to school there and all that type of stuff. A lot of schools would take you on the hikes, take the road, do all these types of things, and Kings Canyon, and you just see a lot of nature. And it was just such a breath of fresh air from being, in school life and being all this type of stuff that I struggled with and all that type of stuff. It's such a crazy thing, and I only got diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in year 8, year 9.
Oh, wow.
And so what's it called? I was all just this is so difficult. I wasn't trying hard.
It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you rather than there might be something wrong in the system or how you're being told.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really depends. People should have picked up on it sooner.
Yeah.
But hey, stuff happens, and I learned from it. And I learned that work on my strengths. So working on art and working on these storytelling and all that type of stuff, because I always love telling people stories. It's just writing the story down that's always difficult for me.
Yeah.
So me being able to draw the story and people being able to be oh, that's the character that you're talking about. Yeah, that's the one. So cool. And so literally, it's such a really good medium, and a lot of Indigenous people and young people these days are very visual learners. And I believe that if schools incorporated this a lot more and actually taught this, because a lot of schools don't believe that this is a real literary thing to be able to work on and all that type of stuff, and like a book.
Yeah.
And if we change that mindset, change that view, that it's actual literacy, it's actual work, and you're learning how to convert words into pictures, it would be a lot more easier to people to express themselves.
Absolutely. I think that this, there's an old train of thought of anti-intellectualism, where someone would say, the curtains were blue, and the English teacher said, it's reflecting all the severe depression and that sort of stuff. Well, that comes to life in comics. You put things there for a real intention. There's a reason for different shapes, different angles, shading, colouring, and you as a reader might not consciously understand it, but subconsciously that is, that's making me feel this way. So there's a very specific art to that when it comes to comics, and it transcends just normal work. I think we've outgrown as a society just writing and learning just from the written word. We now crave those extra pieces to help us put the full picture together rather than anything being left to a mistranslation. So I think that we're well on our way to having more pictures, more colours, and more visual techniques coming texturally as well. So having better textures for someone who's really aesthetic. I remember books by the smell. I'll always remember the Where the Wild Things Are book, because it had such a distinct smell when you open it, and every single book smelled the same because all of the ink and all of the printers came from the same place.
Yeah.
It had this musty, I don't know, it's like
The old paperback cover smell,
It was really weird though, because it was a lot of ink. It was like if someone spilled, it was really weird, but if someone spilled the ink from a pen into a clean nappy. It was just really weird, but that's what it made me think of. It's just bizarre like that, but it will always stick in my memory for that reason. Whereas a lot of textbooks, they're just pure satin pages, gloss, and then there's nothing else to them except for tiny little words that are already hard to read, like tiny font words.
Absolutely, and I think the problem with like a lot of teaching these days and all that type of stuff is the jargon that a lot of people use and all that type of stuff when it's in terms of explaining stuff. And so what I really want to do is, I was taught the jargon by my mentors, Wolfgang Blismer and Arrernte and Anmatyerre, the first Indigenous graphic novelist, and Justin Randall and all that type of stuff. Really amazing guys, check out their books. Arrernte and Anmatyerre, Abby's Underdog, Justin Randall, Changing Flames. What's it called? Yeah, and they taught me all this jargon on how a manuscript works, all the layering with it and all that type of stuff. And I had to personally translate that into something that seems more simpler so that I could teach it to other people that this is really important, people need to learn how to do this. I'm not going to go up on stage and tell you how a manuscript works. I'm going to say to you that you need to take your idea and format it into a Word document. That's what your manuscript is. Don't worry about anyone else, reading it or this and that. It's for you, and you can change it later when you want to show someone. And it's always trying to train. I'm always trying to get better at translating these types of things, like how to create a character, the important things in doing that. Making it as clear and as welcoming as possible for as many people to join it and be able to understand it, whether you're an artist or not. It's really, I want it to be a welcoming space. Yeah. Like music, you can be tone deaf, but you can be like, that's a good song.
Yes, absolutely. And same with a book or a TV show or anything that comes from a script. You can look at it. So my favorite bad example is the difference between Avatar, The Last Airbender, the cartoon, and the M. Night Shyamalan movie. So, cartoon is written beautifully. It is really powerful. The characterizations have a lot of growth in them. You can reflect on them. You can see yourself in them. And then the movie seems to find every good piece of the TV show and just completely take it out.
Yeah.
And it's just really weird. It's a bizarre experience.
It felt very kind of like they had the starting point where they found Aang, and then when they got to the Water Tribe and the Lighthouse Kingdom, it just felt like a big leap. And there was all this character development, all this kind of stuff. They could have worked on this. They could have been like the next Harry Potter.
Yes.
And I think I would have watched all of it, even if the movies weren't great or anything like that. I would have kept watching it, even if I didn't like the actors.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They did a lot of bad stuff with that movie, but I feel like the writing and developing those characters, I don't know what it was, but they tried to take the essence of what was in the show, and then when they put it in the movie, they really fell flat. Yeah. There's lots of analysis on why it fell flat and different people's perspectives on it, but it's something that's hard to master.
And the characters that were in the show and all that type of stuff, like these characters, they have a long curve of their character arcs happening.
You've got a lot more to work with.
You've got a lot more to work with, and it's a slow burn. Zuko is a bad guy at the start, and then slowly becomes this and that. And I don't want to spoil it, but
it's my favorite redemption arc
ever. And it's a really slow burn, and you can't dictate that through just one movie. And you can't really dictate that through one book. That's why these books are book one. We want to keep making more and more books and keep telling these amazing stories and keep showing you what these characters are doing and who these characters are. Show them their faults, show them their victories and all that type of stuff.
Just made me think of a lot of people are moving away from the one movie or the one trilogy, and they're going into really long-form storytelling. Comic books have been doing this forever.
Ever, yes.
Forever and ever. Ever since their inception, they've been doing this. But I feel like a lot of verbal stories, like a lot of First Nation stories, also have done this. And back in Europe as well, people would be paid to go and just tell stories at a bar. Like the bard would come in and they might have like a little instrument or they might have something just to help keep a bit of ambience, but they would tell a story. And the whole point was to get people to keep coming back. And so these long fables, I think it's just part of human nature, to attach ourselves to these long fables, to get invested in them and want to see the happy ending, but to not really want it to end at the same time.
Absolutely. And like, what's it called in Indigenous culture and all that kind of stuff? Like you growing up, you're told these stories, and there's three different types of stories. One where you get told when you're growing up as a kid, one when you're an adult, and one when you go through traditional law and all that kind of stuff. And I can't tell you any this and that, but a lot of the stories that you are told are the ones that they tell kids. And they're exciting, they're, this and that, you learn things from them. And as you get older and as you go through law and all that type of stuff, you start learning the truth and how the spirits work, how the culture, how all the, gods work in Aboriginal culture. It's really amazing. It's really cool to hear.
Oh, fantastic. I am really looking forward to seeing more First Nations culture come into mainstream. I feel like it's something that we really miss out on, and I feel like it makes the Australian people constantly feel displaced. I'm not sure if it gets said as often anymore, but when I was growing up, it was a very common phrase that people would say, Australia has no culture. And I'm like, you just don't know it.
Yeah.
Like you're just not connected to it.
It's not marketed.
No.
And like, we personally don't like to market. Like we're very kind of hiding, like it's not hiding our culture,
No,
it's
it's
kind of
understandable.
like,
And a lot of the time there's like, my family comes from people that just got decimated by the Inquisition. So like native Celtic druids and things like that. And a lot of that was completely destroyed. Like temples and sacred sites just burned to the ground. So like feeling like you don't want what they're selling.
Yeah.
But you've got pieces here that sometimes you don't fully understand and you're trying to see where they fit, but you don't have all the pieces. It's really common wherever Catholicism seems to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, like
Sorry, Catholics.
No, but yeah, there's so Lissa and Seraphina and Lauren are the first female Indigenous graphic novelists in Australia.
Incredible.
Stuff, that we know of, and that was a big push in marketing for them because to be published and to be known as, they've got their book published when they were 17.
Yeah.
17, 18.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I got mine published when I was like 19.
Yeah.
And
That's still amazing.
It's still amazing, and it just blows my mind because it's kind of just like, they're like, oh, we want more books out.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, let's keep going. And I'm like, all right, I was already writing mine. If you want it, cool, sure. And like, there's a lot of work that goes in the background of it, and it's a lot of like stopping and starting. So you do the script, show it to your publisher, do the manuscript, show it to your publisher, do the drawings, show it to your publisher, and it's just a lot of like, it's just a lot of checking to see if this is like where the story's going. It's a lot of guiding and all that type of stuff because Wolfgang, our mentor, he likes to, he's worthless, but with his feedback. But sorry, Wolfgang, if you see.
You need that. That's a good mentor. No faffing about.
And all that type of stuff. And it's really good just to, because it shows us how the professionals and how serious this is that we're getting a book published. And it's like him being like, oh, you need to do this, do that, having to try this is really amazing for us to be able to have someone like that. And because growing up, going to school and all that stuff, you have authors and writers and all that stuff come into school, and they'd be there and they'd be like, oh, this is how you write a book. This is how, we're going to do a little thing, and then they leave and never come back.
Yes.
And that's one thing that Stick Mob we don't want to do. We want to get partnerships. We want to build those relationships with schools and like other companies to tell more stories. And we don't want that one-off kind of like say hello, goodbye. Yeah. Even though we have to sometimes. and because funding and this and that, but we also want to see who's the gifted kids in that class that actually want to tell a story and keep checking up on them. Because it's the most important part is just for someone to tell you their idea, just vent the whole idea to you.
Yeah, sometimes you just go word vomit it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Just blah, 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 and you're like, oh, how about you try this? I'm like, oh, cool, that's so cool, and then go. You don't even need to talk. You just need to be there, so they don't sound insane and have it in their head the whole time.
They just need that sounding board. Yeah.
And sometimes it's little things. It's like, what do you think of this panel? I'm like, it's really good. Change this.
Yeah.
Boom. Like, it's just little things like that can improve someone's day. It's just like someone's listening, someone cares, and a lot of kids and a lot of people don't have a space at home to be creative. And so the one main thing that it doesn't really seem like at our workshops and when we're teaching and telling stories is just giving people the green light to be creative. So just being like, hey, here's an hour, make a cake. And, here's an hour, tell me your story. Let's go for it. Here's me and you, what's it called?
Sometimes it's just you need someone who believes in you, who says and gives you permission to succeed. I feel like that for me has been a huge thing in my life. The moment that one of my teachers or someone I looked up to said, no, you can do this. I want to see this done. It's like, oh, well, okay, I'm honest.
Just that push,
Yeah. Just enough to know that someone believes the direction you're going in is good for you, and you'll just go for it. Yeah, it's so good.
Absolutely.
You're doing such good work. I am so excited to have you be part of the festival this year, and I really want to make sure that all of the students come check out these comic books and make sure that you come and talk with Declan so that you know that you can do it too.
Bring some drawings, bring whatever you want. I'll be at a store afterwards selling these books in bundles, selling some t-shirts and selling some stickers, or just throwing out stickers and all that type of stuff.
Love it.
And, just come on down and talk to us. I don't mind. It's going to be great. It's going to be a really fun weekend, and I can't wait to go.
We are going to have an awesome time. So make sure that you come down to the Logan Writers Festival on September 9th and 10th. Pending the rain, we might have to change the address, but we will make sure that it is all good for everyone to come and sell their books and for you to find your new favourite author. See you on the 9th and 10th.
Have a good one.